but
So we have our
he's
third
not-
base. So it's not actually not that, you know, the game's not lost. You took a bit of a beating. Look at these Zerglings are trying to enter your base. And
yeah, and I held that off, and I was really happy about that. It's one of the only good moves I made this entire game.
Okay, so Zealot's on hold position, paying off.
I'm putting a few more behind it because I realized they're not going to survive 50,000 Zerglings, so...
Okay, so we're getting more gas at a third.
Because I need more. I am at 1,500. I need more. This is logic. I'm finally getting upgrades. That's another thing on my mind at the moment. I'm as far as I know, I'm behind in upgrades.
Okay.
I mean, this is Zerg left unattacked. He's made 10 mutas and contained me in my base. So he has had free reign of the map for the past 10 minutes in the game.
Looks like you killed all his mutas at the third. How do you feel about that now? What's going through your mind?
He's being careless with his mutas. Like, I just figured, and it doesn't look like he's dedicated to them. So I'm kind of in the dark about what he's doing. I'm just picturing huge Infestor, Broodlord, Ultralisk,
Deathball.
and yeah, coming up at my base.
What prompts these
5 times
extra cannons at the natural now that you killed the Mutalisks? I see that you're adding 2 more cannons.
Mutas.
You think
Just
there's more?
mutas. I mean, he has the ability to make them. He could bring them in at any point.
Okay.
I'm trying to be as safe as possible before I move out, which is what I'm doing here.
So this is going to prompt an attack. Do you feel like this is the right time to move out?
I feel like I'm relatively secure at home.
Well, I noticed one thing. You don't actually have the Observer to push out the creep tumors.
No, so that's what I actually pull back here for. I'm waiting on that.
Okay. Looks like your income tab, you're kind of catching up to Zerg. Now you're at 48, kind of low.
So is Zerg, though.
But Zerg also has 3 grand bank, and you only have 200 minerals. So
This is true.
Zerg can do something like the instant remax, and Protoss might be in trouble.
Which makes me very sad.
Right. So he also looks like he has a pretty good creep spread. Looks like he's right at your front door. What's your next move now? Like, you're in the dark. Are you going to use that Observer to scout, or are you just going to go with it?
I am pushing back the creep to the tower at the moment, I believe.
Okay.
And again, it's another oversight of mine, assuming he was worse than he was, because in a second, as you'll see, I find his Roach Hydra army, and he's got like 10 units, and I'm like, how bad is this guy? Like, I'm honestly just thinking the only thing he can do right is creep spread, because there's no reason I should have won this game, or had a chance at winning it. So I kill that army, and I'm actually happy.
You're actually in the lead right now, in terms of army supply. And,
I'm actually thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to somehow win this game? So I move up his base with a huge, greater confidence than I should have had. That probe is going to town on those creep tumors. And he's coming out at me with like 20 Zerglings, and then I see, oh crap, Broodlords. So I've realized that while I was attacking those Roach Hydras, he made 50,000 Broodlords.
with some of that bank that he had.
Exactly. So
And now
I am in a horrible position right now.
Right. I see some stalkers dancing at your natural.
I mean, I'm just feeling at this point that the lack of scouting, the fact that the mutas kept me in my base, the lack of scouting has put me in a terrible position at this point.
Well, again, the supplies are actually in your favor right now. We did scout Broodlords.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a huge amount of anti-air. Where are you going to go from here? Are you going to go for Stargate into Vordrays? Are you going to go for Templar? Are you going to go for more Stalkers?
My first priority, like, I just wanted to get rid of the Broodlords that were attacking my base, so I didn't have much choice other than to blink right up underneath them.
Okay.
Which, apparently, sentries are, like, amazing against Broodlords, because those sentries are being heroes right now. I should have pulled a... I don't know, was it Grubby or someone that hallucinated Void Rays and the Zerg Rage quit? Because that's what Hydra does.
Yes.
But, so I've got my Colossi A moving into Broodlords.
I saw that.
I mean, I was feeling so bad about this game at this point, because I was thinking, okay, Zerg's maxed, which he's not, but my impression is that he is, because he has bases and Broodlords out already.
Well, you actually have more bank than Zerg right at this point in time.
Yeah, I know.
So now, again, the supplies are pretty even, 118 to 128. Now, what's your next move? You dealt with the Broodlords, they're dead. Looks like you're taking a fourth, and taking gas, which you're...
Mm-hmm. Still way too much of. It's like a habit, and it's a bad one.
Okay. Did you look at your money this game and say, wow, I have a lot of gas, maybe I can go
I was thinking it during the game too, and I just never reacted to it because I don't know.
Like maybe tech switch. And do you think with a tech switch, or do you think that would help?
I just felt so limited this game. Now I see ultras. I'm like, ultra broodlord crap. I don't know how he has less supply than me, to be honest, because that looks like a huge army. So I just backed up and tried to kill everything again, and I'm so on the back foot against Zerg, which you never want to be, because, I mean, if Zerg's got this much of a lead, tech-wise at least, you're just not in a good spot. I'm trying to pick off a few corruptors.
I noticed no offensive blink there.
Yeah, because I knew there was just broodlords waiting for me, so
Right.
I didn't want to overextend. So I've got some more stalkers coming in, which of course Ultralisk counter perfectly, which I now know he has.
So I know you noticed you got double forge too, but you haven't really been using it too much.
I haven't had the money to.
Right.
Like, I got way more than I was capable of supporting, and as a result, I never really got anything. If that makes sense. Like, I built more production than I was capable of supporting.
Right. That makes sense, yes.
So, I never it's like having a little bit of everything.
It's funny, you guys have about the same money. He's got 500 minerals and 1,800 gas. You have about 600 minerals and 2,000 gas.
Yeah.
You're in the same boat.
He's now 30 supply ahead, but as far as tech goes, he has a huge advantage. I didn't actually check upgrades this game. I'm going to go to All Vision to check that, because I haven't.
His upgrades are pretty good.
He is, yeah. I mean, his ultras have 6 armor.
I think by the end of the game, you were pretty close to 3. I think you were 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
Not mistaken.
So he's got really good upgrades. I come in, I'm offensive blinking to the Broodlords, which allows the Ultras time to go to town on my Colossi, which is honestly just a horrible, horrible thing. I take out this army, which again had me wondering, how is this guy not crushing me? He's had free reign of the map for 20 minutes. But somehow I kept up. There's still a Broodlord there, and I'm just attacking at the things. But I did not notice these Lings running into my 3rd and 4th along with the Ultras. So, it's not so much the fact that I was behind the entire game, which I was, but at this point I knew, even with good micro, I didn't have a chance of coming back. Because I just lost 2 bases, even if I could kill the Ultras.
Right. 2 of your mining bases, basically.
2 mining bases are gone. I'm down to 20 probes, so no matter how bad this Zerg was, like, I don't know. So basically, Crisis Control lost me the game because I was not paying attention to his counterattack when I killed way more Ultras than I should have.
Right, so we saw some things with the Mutalisks taking out more probes than they should have, with splitting up the Stalkers in each base.
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately cost me the game. It was a very long, drawn-out game, longer than it should have been, but I think it can just go back to not scouting early enough, as far as what cost me that.
So what would you have done differently this game to maybe have secured the win?
Scouted. I don't know when Zerg Tech shows up, because I don't play Zerg, but if the mutas were there at 10, that means he had time to build them, which is like 33 seconds. And then he had time, I'm checking drones at the moment, he had time to build the Spire, which is 100 seconds, so that's 2 minutes, which means his Spire would have started building at 8 minutes. So at the latest, I want to be scouting for his tech 6-7 minutes, especially if he's rushing for it. Which, mutas being very common now, I need to be doing.
So big thing between scout and attack and make...
Definitely would have scouted earlier, and something I can try to do is that when you're... If you just send in a probe, it's going to die to 2 Lings. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see anything. Something I saw you do in a game when I was being coached by you like 6 months ago. It was in a PvP, and you distracted him with like 6 Stalkers while you sent in a probe through beneath that. And his army was focused on yours, so, I mean, your scout got in for free.
Right.
So in a situation like this, when you know he's got spines or whatever, that's a pretty good thing to do. To get in, see his tech, try to be sneaky.
So try and get your probe some access into his base by creating a diversion?
Mm-hmm. So that's something I probably need to work on. Like, probably the instant my expansion goes down. Especially if, I mean, it should go down sooner than it did. My build order sucks. So,
think it was a pretty close game. I think one thing, if you could have changed also, was maybe your gas intake.
Yeah.
I think maybe if you limited your gas a little bit and maybe have went for that War Prism or Dark Templar, you might have been able. Because I'm looking at his base now, and he doesn't have a lot of detection. I'm looking at
Dark Templar and Void Rays both could have gotten me back in that game somewhat. Void Rays less so because he had mutas.
Right.
But at that point, you can't counterattack, but you can counter-harass. However limited that is for Protoss. Like, that's your only option. You have to stay in your base, so you've got to send out some counterforce, whether that's 10 Blink Stalkers or 2 DTs each base, something like that,
right.
to try to get yourself back in the game. Because you can't fight him straight up, you can't leave your base completely, so...
Makes
like,
sense.
there's a lot of things... It's easy to think about what you should be doing, but after the fact, that's easier enough. But in the game, I wasn't thinking of any of this, so, yeah.
True. So if you were to rate this game after having the time to review it, how would you rate this game from like a...
2 out of 10? I don't know. It was horrible.
But I mean, there's stuff that you definitely can improve. I think you did some things right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think the cannons were stepping in the right direction. You got the blank, which is a help against mutas. You separated your army. At one point, in each mineral line, you had some stalkers and sentries. You took the third base relatively on time, so you were on 3 base, Turtle on 3 base for a while, and I think that bought you some time. You dealt with the Broodlords, you didn't like succumb to that. Eventually, the Ultralisk counterattack with the Lings.
That's what cost me.
Kind of took you over.
Ultimately cost me the game,
right.
But was not the reason I was behind so far. Well, relatively.
Fair enough.
I wasn't actually behind. Like, if this was a Masters level game and you had the same foothold I did, it was actually rather even. But I don't know. Against a good Zerg, I would have lost 10 minutes sooner.
Right.
So.
Okay, it's all practice, so it's all seeing where we can go from there. And
yeah.
Alright, so I'm gonna load up mine. Another PVZ on Shadow Temple. And I'm gonna pause at 00, and let me know when you are there, and we'll go into...
It is loading. It is at 50%.
Okay, great.
Do you want to watch this from your perspective, or... Oh.
Yeah, we'll go from my perspective, and I'll go
All right.
from there, and I guess you can do the question asked in this time, and I'll do some of the talking.
All right, and this is... I'm ready, so, yeah.
All right. And we'll unpause in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so PvZ Shadow Temple. I think this map is pretty decent for both sides. I used to not like this map because of the middle, but I've kind of gotten around it. I was kind of figuring out ways I could kind of macro up. I am a pretty decent macro player when it comes to any matchup, so first thing that comes to mind, PvZ, I want to Forge Fast Expand. That seems to be the hype nowadays in PvZ. It seems to be the option that everyone's taking to get that economic lead. And again, being that macro player, I think that's what's fitting me right now. So I'll send out a probe at 9, and I'll start making my pylon, and I'll go scout him. Now you'll see me send my probe out to the farthest spot he could be while sending out a probe to look for the Overlord around my in my main. I don't see an Overlord around by the main, so I'm going to go scout him at the furthermost base and see if he's over there in that location. Until then, I'm just going to Chrono Boost probes and hope he's not 6-pulling.
Pretty standard. That's one thing I like about both this map and Metalopolis, even after admitting that Metalopolis was like 70% in favor of Zerg, including close positions, and then removing close positions. The fact that they removed close spawns means you can scout them first time, assuming they send their Overlord, which is very, very helpful in holding off things like a 6 pool or a 7 pool, any kind of early pool.
Yeah.
Which is the primary reason you would scout Zerg so early anyways.
Indeed, close positions were so not in favor of Protoss. So I scout no pool.
Yeah.
And I scout late gas. I see this drone doing some trying to hide. And I'm going down to the natural to try and block an expansion. At the same time, since I scouted no pool, no 6 pool or anything like that, I decided to go for Nexus first at 17. So I'm cutting probes.